Hello, welcome to the Points lecture series on social issues, and this is the introductory lecture on the social structure in India. Now, what do you understand by social structure? What is the necessity to study this subject? We'll be looking at these points in this lecture, and we will also try to understand the historical evolution of the social structure in our country. Basically, what do you understand by a society? In every relation that human beings are associated in, there is a specific purpose or there is a activity. So society in its very crudest form is nothing but the organization formed for fulfilling that purpose or activity. From childhood, in our history textbooks, we would be often hearing the term that India is a very diverse country with unity in diversity. Now, what does this term mean, and why India is supposed to be very diverse? For example, if we take a look back at our history, we have a cultural heritage. Cultural heritage means there are certain elements of our culture which stand even today despite the fact that they are millennia old. Almost 1500 years have passed on, and yet a lot of the elements of our culture basically means the way of life. So in a society, we organize our lives for fulfilling that purpose, and you can consider culture as a tool which keeps those activities continuing. So this is from the most ancient times, widespread and diverse. And again, India, is not a unitary country. There is a lot of diversity. Like for example, the North Indians lifestyle is completely different from the South, and within the South you have different states, and within that, region as well as language contribute to this diversity element. Now, are these the only elements that cause diversity? Not really. We'll look at the aspect of diversity in this series. So the reason why we're trying to understand, if you take a look at our history from 19th century onwards, especially after the advent of British, the lifestyles have completely changed. This is the age of modernism. Now, this age of modernism is nothing but a period that is characterized by political structure that is actually under the control of certain imperialistic powers across the world, and this is mainly because of access to technology and power. So because of the economic might of these countries and their manipulative tendencies, not just the British but several European powers have occupied countries across the world because of their economic prowess. As a result, there is a lot of confluence of cultures. Not only we had Islam as well as Hinduism, we started having new elements in our culture through the advent of Christianity. So no matter how much modernism we talk about, we still have certain conventional cultural elements which remain with us, and they form what we know as the basis for a traditional Indian social system. A social system, like again coming back to the definition, is nothing but a organization of human beings to fulfill a specific purpose or activity. So what are those elements that we created within our Indian social system for a smooth functioning of our life? This is what we are supposed to understand, because without understanding a particular society, if we try to make policies, it would hurt the sentiments of human beings in that society. So right after the British came into our country in the 19th century, we started witnessing a shift in our polity. And this shift in our polity has a lot to do with our social organization, because it is actually the 19th century social thinkers who brought about this change. So this aspect of what we know as the socio-cultural change is because of the confluence of the Western culture with a renewed thought which was introduced by the West and adopted by us. So there are certain terms that you have to understand here, like rationalism, individualism, and utilitarianism. Rationalism is a philosophy which actually advocates scientific temper. Everything is questioned, and because of this questioning itself, you remove all kinds of superstitions in a society. Say, for example, sati. This practice actually advocated how a woman should be burnt alive with her husband after his death. Sometimes it so happened in medieval societies that a young girl, sometimes even a minor in the present scheme of things, like that is less than 15-year-old kids, are also married to very old men, and when that old man passes away, this practice of sati was conducted and the girl was also killed along with the person. So these kind of irrational practices, doing away with them is very much required, and in the 19th century socio-cultural reforms were focused on doing away with such kind of stupid practices, and that was possible because of rationalism. So individualism and utilitarianism are also other kinds of principles which talk about the collective good, at the same time giving enough opportunities for individuals to express their potential. All this is because of Western culture, which talked about egalitarianism, that is, equality of different classes in a society, and universalism, that is, this kind of an economic system and human rights should become universal. All this was happening after the 17th century French Revolution, or the 18th century French Revolution, and what followed after, because of what we know today as Industrial Revolution, because of the growth of science in European world. Apart from this, before this century, we didn't have the modes of transport like railways, etc., which could move people from different parts of the country to the other parts so quickly and efficiently. Introduction of railways also facilitated that confluence of different cultures. And despite so many things, even today, we know that we still retain certain traditional structures in our country. For example, caste. Now this caste, its origin and the reason why it is so important in our Indian society, we have to understand the origin for this and go back into history. Let us examine that. Before understanding the aspect of caste and the other aspects of the syllabus, you have to know certain characteristic features of Indian society. Now, whenever we think about Indian society, these elements, you can observe them. Like I've told you, society is nothing but an organization of people to serve a particular purpose, and culture is the methodology and tools to fulfill and maintain that society. So what are those tools is nothing but the characteristic features of our culture, and here is where you have to understand these principles. First one, doctrine of karma. In its simplest form, all it means is whatever you are trying to do, you will have certain weightage for that activity. If you do good things, you will attain good karma. If you do bad things, you attain bad karma, and you will suffer for that. So the major basis for our society, like I've told you, is religion. It was one of the most important factor which controlled human behavior, which was otherwise very uncontrollable. Religion acted as a form of social control. How? Because of this doctrine of karma. Say, for example, if a thief is scared of conducting an activity which might give him a bad karma, and if he is believing that it would later lead to his suffering, he would refrain from doing such activities. So, as a part of the social contract, religion played a huge role, and every other person respected his fellow human being because of this doctrine of karma. So this cultural element kept the purpose of our society moving forward. So doctrine of karma is one such characteristic feature which was central to the existence of our Indian society. Second one is dharma. Dharma is actually a part of what is known as purushartha. There are 4 objectives according to the traditional Sanatan Dharma. They are also called purushartha. Sanatan Dharma is the religion or the set of religious principles of Indian society in the ancient times. So we are talking about Vedic period or pre-Vedic period. So 4 objectives: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma is the kind of principles different sets of people have to follow. That is nothing but their duty. While they are a part of a society, everyone is bound to have a duty and they have to fulfill that duty. The next one is about artha or money or material wealth. The principles one follows to achieve this material wealth is one of the controlling factor for our society. And next one is kam or the basic desires for materialistic comfort. And the last one is moksha or liberation. Liberation is believed to be the ultimate salvation for human beings in our Indian society, and it has continued that legacy even till modern times. That is the reason why doctrine of karma is very important. If bad karma is accumulated, it will stop the person's liberation according to the beliefs of our Indian society. So that is the reason why liberation was so important and doctrine of karma was so important. The next one is again a aspect that we can see even in the present times, that is unity. Despite the differences, there are a lot of unifying features. The traditions across the country still have those unifying features despite some regional variations. For example, if I give the example of Ganga Harati and Brahmaputra Harati. So basically Arati is a ritual of Hinduism or the Sanatan Dharma as it is broadly called. Ganga Harati has certain set of principles and rituals which are actually not followed in the Brahmaputra Harati in Assam. These regional variations are because of the geography of that region. Say for example, in this context, Brahmaputra Harati uses a lot of leaves, whereas Ganga Harati involves a lot of fire. The fact can be attributed to the presence of rich green vegetation in Brahmaputra valley. So this sort of variations are definitely present, but despite the diversity, we still have unity. So that is another facet of our Indian society. And lastly, joint family system. It's very important to understand this concept. Our society basically from times immemorial is basically a agrarian society. What does this mean? Our major factor of production is agriculture. Unlike in the modern times, ancient times had vast land which required family labor. So family labor is one major factor that would contribute to the prosperity of that family. In an agrarian society, joint families thrived because they required huge labor, and these joint families had certain structure. In our Indian society, we witness something called a patriarchal system. Please understand this term. Patriarchal system basically means that the family is actually run by males but not females. So male and female. So females are expected to just take care of the family responsibility, and males are expected to earn money, and the other males and other females in the family would follow the elder male of the family. So this is the patriarchal system that we are talking about. Now in the recent times, these joint families broke down into nuclear families because of A major factor being 1991 LPG reforms, where we have witnessed the economy opening up to the Western world and private companies coming in, which led to agrarian society transforming into a industrial economy or a mixed economy, or you can also say service based economy. However, we will not go into the details of that. Let us save that for further lectures. So this is the concept of joint family system, and all these points together constitute what we know as the characteristics of Indian society. Before the caste system, we have something called tribe. This tribe is the earliest identifiable ethnic cum social organization. Again, coming back to the definition of society, it's basically a group of people coming together for fulfilling a purpose. Now, how did it get so complicated? What was its earliest form? How did the people come together? Naturally, to any person who is living in a modern democratic society, it would be very unthinkable to think that originally some people thought they were superior and some people are inferior. How did this system evolve? Did original human beings who came together with a purpose have this setup? Actually not. Tribe is one of the earliest identifiable organization. Now, what do you mean by tribe? You have to understand. Basically, in a tribe, there are certain characteristic features. All of them are blood relations. Secondly, all members are equal. Thirdly, all members believe they have descended from common ancestor. And fourthly, all members have equal access. Lastly, there is a common property. So this is the original organization of our society. But as times evolved, this access to resources is a concept that became problematic. One person wanted more access than the others. So tribes began to be divided amongst them, and depending on the skill that each of this tribe had, it eventually evolved into what we know today as the Varna system. So depending on the qualities that they exhibited, these tribes organized themselves into Chaturvarna, or the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. Brahmin was supposed to have the best or the highest quality of academic excellence and purity of mind. Kshatriyas were the people who had physical prowess and warrior-like skills. Vaishyas are supposed to be the landowners and merchants, and Sudra, those who did not exhibit any of these skills and were just using their labor. So the laborers were considered to be Shudra. This was the origin. Now, one important factor that you have to know is, if a person works hard, he can move from Shudra to Vaishya or elsewhere as well in the original society. But as time progressed, this became rigid. Let us examine how. As time progressed, in the post-Vedic society, what happened is it led to new religions like Buddhism, which tried to redefine social order. And in a bid to redefine this social order, they've rejected this caste system. So between this 500 BC to 500 AD, we also saw the crystallization of caste. That is, it became rigid, and at the same time, there was rejection from new religions or new ideologies like that of Buddhism and Jainism. At the same time, this crystallization of caste became even more concrete because a lot of tribes that were coming in from Greek region, even they were integrated into this new form of caste. Also, this period saw certain caste hierarchies and intercaste marriages being shunned. So all we can say is this element of caste which defined Indian society became more rigid as time progressed. And because of this system and the growth of what we know today as the feudalism, or the feudal structure, we have a scenario where there was absolutely little possibility for social mobility. The peasants and poor Shudras remained as such. The Vaishyas and other castes who were working with their skills remained as such. The military class provided security, and the king, who is also a Kshatriya, is supported by Brahmins and nobles. However, you also have regional variations. Like, say for example, in northern India, the Rajput caste, who were initially tribes, they emerged as a significant factor because of their valor, and they became Kshatriyas. From the 8th century onwards, this regional consciousness, that is, affiliating one's identity to a region, this started slowly. So this gave rise to a new phenomenon as we know today, regionalism. And all of this has got to do with access to resources. So from 8th century onwards, a lot of regional kingdoms started increasing, and that is one of the major reasons why different variations of castes who received patronage of the local kings associated themselves with the region. For example, the North Indian Brahmanas are divided further on the basis of Gotra. And if you take a look at the present day UP, Bihar, etc., those Gangetic plains are very fertile, and therefore the population was always on a higher side. Therefore, they went a step ahead and even associated themselves from the place of their residence. So, a large number of Rajput subcastes also carried their tribal names such as Tomars, Hadas, Chauhans. These again were actually to gain certain social advantage or gain better access to power. So this actually explains the historical evolution of the idea of caste, which is the most fundamental social structure in our Indian society. So we will stop the Indian society introductory lecture here, and we will try to understand in the further lectures the other elements of Indian society and how they created certain social problems and what the present day democratic order has done to address those historical social problems.